Mama Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Gadamayam Tadati Shapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Mukam karoti vachalang Pangulangayate giri ya kripa tamaham bande siguru dinatarinam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, the month of Damodar has ended, but we're going to just read a little more. This will be our last class on Damodar. Because, of course, the pastime is eternal, but generally we read it during this month. So, I thought, well, let's continue reading. We haven't finished. There's so much to discuss, and so let's read. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada has given us everything, so it's all sweet, Prabhupada said. We can read anywhere. It's always sweet. So we're reading from the 10th canto, the 9th chapter. This is text 20. This is where we left off. I'll read the Sanskrit just to get you in the mood. Neman vinincho nabhavo nashir apyanga samshaya prasaram lebhire gopi dyatat prapa vimuktidat. I can hardly see. Vimuktidat. You know, if you can pronounce Sanskrit nicely, Prabhupada will be happy. So this is the translation. Neither Lord Brahma, nor Lord Shiva, nor even the goddess of fortune, who is always the better half of the Supreme Lord, can obtain from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the deliverer from this material world, such mercy as received by Mother Jasoda. And so this glorifies the residents of Braj, and how much, well, mercy is received in proportion to the amount of love one has. So really, one way you could look at this verse and say nobody can have the love. No Brahman or Shiva nor the goddess of fortune has the love that Jasoda has, so therefore they don't have the mercy. Yes? Does that make sense? Let's read the purport. This is a comparative study between Mother Jasoda and other devotees of the Lord. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5:142, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabya Britya. The only Supreme Master is Krishna, and all others are his servants. Krishna has the transcendental quality of Britya Vashyata, becoming subordinate to his Britya or servant. Now, although everyone is Britya, and although Krishna has the quality of becoming subordinate to his Britya, the position of Mother Yasoda is the greatest. Lord Brahma is Britya, a servant of Krishna, as he is Adi Kavi, the original creator of this universe. Tene Brahma Hrida Ya Adi Kabaye, Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Nonetheless, even he could not obtain such mercy as Mother Jasoda. As for Lord Shiva, he is the topmost Vaishnava. Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. What to speak of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi is the Lord's constant companion in service, since she always associates with his body. But even she could not get such mercy. Therefore Maharaj Parikshit was surprised, thinking, what did Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj do in their previous lives by which they got such a great opportunity, the opportunity to be the affectionate father and mother of Krishna? That's a natural question. Why? What did they do to get this position? And also, it's a curious question, but also the question can also be seen as, could I get up as a similar position? And if I could, what would I have to do to get it? So that's another way of looking at it. Yes? In this verse, there are 3 negative pronouncements, na, na, na. When anything is uttered 3 times, do it, do it, do it, one should understand that this is meant to indicate great stress on a fact. In this verse, we find na lebire, na lebire, na lebire. Wow. Do we find that? I didn't find that. Nashri. Maybe. I don't know Sanskrit, so yeah, we have, of course. Not maybe. I just didn't see how it is. Yet Mother Yasoda, excuse me, yet Mother Yasoda is in the supermost exalted position, and thus Krishna has become completely subordinate to her. So, not Brahma, not Shiva, not goddess of fortune. That's what that means. Nalabire. Labire means obtained. Yeah. Na, na, na. Not Shiva, not Brahma, not the goddess of fortune. No one has attained what Mother Yashoda has attained. Yet Mother Yashoda is in the supermost exalted position, and thus Krishna has become completely subordinate to her. So that's when you love Krishna, then he becomes subordinate. Everyone becomes subordinate to love. And so even God becomes subordinate to love. So when you love Krishna, then basically whatever you want, he'll do, because he's subdued by your love. And he's only thinking how to satisfy you. The word vimukti dat is also significant. There are different types of liberation, such as sayuja, salokya, sarupya, sharshti, and samipya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 6, 266. But vimukti means special mukti. V means special. So mukti means liberation. Vimukti means special liberation. When after liberation, one is situated on the platform of prema bhakti, one is said to have achieved vimukti, special mukti. Therefore, the word na is mentioned. That exalted platform of prema is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as prema pumarto mahan. And Mother Yashoda naturally acts in such an exalted position in loving affairs. She is therefore a nitya siddha devotee, an expansion of Krishna's ladini potency. So she's not a jiva soul. She's part of Krishna's eternal shakti, ladini potency, pleasure potency. His potency to enjoy transcendental bliss through expansions who are special devotees. That's the ladini potency. Ananda Chidmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis. That's from Brahma Samhita 5:37. Such devotees are not sadhana siddha. So, some of the gopis, or some of the Brajbasis, obviously, are not sadhana siddha. They are part of Krishna's internal potency. They will not ever be conditioned souls. But those conditioned souls, through sadhana, become sadhana siddhi. Siddhi means perfect, so through sadhana they can become perfect, and when they become perfect, they can then become eternal associates. But these associates who are eternal are different than the Shaktis of Krishna, like Jasoda and Nanda, the principal gopis and so forth, who are eternally unconditioned. They'll never be conditioned. Their position is they will never be conditioned. It's not possible. Yes. So, let's read what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says about this. We are going deep. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, this verse is spoken on seeing the exceptional devotion of the Queen of Braja, who among all the devotees brought Krishna under her control. Vimukti here means Vivesha Mukti, specialized liberation, or prema. Vimukti dat means Krishna, the giver of prema. Virincho, Lord Brahma, the inconceivable, this is about Lord Brahma, the inconceivable mercy that Jasoda obtained from Krishna, the giver of prema, was never received by Brahma, Shiva, or even Lakshmi. This verse contains 3 negative pronouncements. So you can see how Prabhupada's, he's using, you can see it's the same thing in his purport, because he's using, this is one of the commentaries he uses. This verse contains 3 negative pronouncements, Neman, Nabhavo, and Nashir. These repetitions emphasize the exceeding absence of mercy offered to these personalities. Wow. Did you hear that? 3 repetitions emphasize the exceeding absence of mercy offered to these personalities. However, the word indeed, api, in the sentence can mean that even though they received mercy, it was not to the extent of Jasoda. So either you can take it they received mercy, or you could take it they didn't receive mercy, or kind of synthesize this in relation to the mercy that Jasoda got. They really didn't get much mercy. You could even consider it that they really didn't get mercy, not the mercy of prema anyway, because Jasoda controlled Krishna, but not Shiva, not Brahma, not even Lakshmi. Lord Brahma is the son of Bhagavan Sri Krishna and the Adi Guru of the devotees. Sa Adi Devo Jagatam Paroguro, Bhagavatam 295. As the topmost Vaishnavanam Yatashambhu, Shiva is considered superior to Brahma. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who resides on the chest of Vishnu, is superior to even Shiva and Brahma, the shelters of Sakya and Dasya Ras. Nevertheless, Mother Jasoda is in the supermost exalted position because she alone obtained such extraordinary mercy from the Lord. It is wrong to think that Jasoda is a sadhana siddha who got a boon from Brahma in her previous lifetime as Dara. The prema of Jasoda cannot be attained as a result of Brahma's boon, for Brahma himself prays to become a blade of grass in Braja. Indeed, Brahma is counted in a much, much lower class. Shukadeva Goswami says, O Parikshit, although you know about the Nanda and Jasoda, who are famous in the scriptures as Nitya Siddhas, in answer to your casual question, 10.846, about their austerities in the previous lives, I told you the story of Drona and Dara, who are very small expansions of Nanda and Jasoda. Drona and Dara became Devaki and Vasudeva, who are expansions. But Nanda and Jasoda are eternal positions. And we can't have that position, although you could be in a parental ras, but you can't have the position of Jasoda or Nanda. That position is taken, and Prabhupada said, to think that you could have that position, that's Mayavadi. Just like I could think I could become God, or I think I can become an eternal associate, it's the same thing. So, now, one might say, one might think from a material perspective, well, that's not really fair. Why should Nanda and Jasoda have that eternal position as Krishna's mother and father? But fairness and unfairness are not felt in the spiritual world. Because as Prabhupada said, whatever your rasa is with Krishna, it's called Sthai Bhav, and that's perfect for you. And in fact, some of the devotees, especially manjaris, their relationship is not directly with Krishna, but it's to serve Radha. And in that service, they experience their relationship with Krishna. So you might think from a material point of view, well, that's not fair. They don't get to serve Krishna directly, but their love for Radha is even greater, and they'd rather serve Radha. And whatever Radha is experiencing, they experience. So, a lot of times when we try to understand what is Braj, what is the spiritual world, then we have some material conception, because obviously we're in material consciousness, and everything we're relating to from our perspective of this world. And so that can sometimes be helpful and sometimes not helpful, because sometimes we could say the spiritual world is perverted reflection, so we can turn things around. Lust becomes love, and there's a transcendental envy and so forth. So there's the real envy and the perverted envy. But some things can't really be understood from a material perspective, because there's nothing analogous to it in the material world. It's in its own world. And so, but it's true that anything you look at spiritually from the material perspective, you'll misunderstand, and then some things may upset you, for example, or some things may discourage you, when in fact the spiritual nature is blissful and encouraging. So it would be strange if you're upset about something which is completely transcendental and totally blissful and full of knowledge and so forth. So at least we understand that within the transcendental realm, there's no effect of the modes of nature. So if there's no effect of the modes of nature, there can't be unfairness, and there can't be a feeling of unfairness, and there can't be any kind of dissatisfaction or unhappiness, because that will only happen under the influence of the modes of nature. And you could imagine, just Krishna has created this transcendental realm, and how could we imagine that there's some imperfection in it? Krishna consciously created imperfection in the material realm, and he consciously created perfection in the spiritual realm. So because it's perfect, there's no question that anything there isn't perfect, and that anyone's position isn't perfect. Everything is just perfect. That's just the way Krishna made it perfectly. And often I tell devotees something, which I think is a very powerful meditation, that when we are attached materially to something, and we're trying to be happy, doing something to gratify our senses, to make us feel good, or engaging with something material, what you could call jada ras. Jada means dead, so some dead ras. We're having a ras with something material, and we're trying to extract some pleasure, which we do all the time. And what Krishna has created for us, and the pleasure that comes from what Krishna has created for us, is infinitely greater than whatever we could create for ourselves. And there's a number of reasons. One, he's infinitely better at creating everything. So how or why should we think that we could create a happiness for ourselves better than he can create for us? Now, we may not understand how he creates happiness for us, or we may not even like it because it requires some austerity, some giving up of something. But with your intelligence, just meditate on this reality that we are very small and we're a bit stupid. So number one, we don't have great capacity to create happiness, not as great as he has. And being somewhat stupid about what makes us happy, we don't really know, and he knows. So on both accounts, he could do a much better job at creating happiness for us than we can create for ourselves. So expand that idea into the spiritual world, that Krishna has created this existence, which is, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta translates in the Brahma Samhita, it has the all-accommodating potency. So it accommodates all our spiritual desires in a way in which we'll be perfectly satisfied. So if you look at it from a material perspective and thinking, well, if I were there, how would I be satisfied? Then it won't make any sense. Just like Prabhupada tells a story that this preacher went to the coal miners and he talked about hell. They said, what's hell like? And he said, it's very dark and cold, etc. And they said, well, it's dark and cold here, so we're okay. And the preacher's saying, yeah, but if you don't believe in Jesus, you'll go to hell. And he just couldn't get them to believe in Jesus, because the way he was describing hell was just, they were used to that. And he said, but in hell there's no tea and there's no newspaper. And they said, oh, we'll surrender to Jesus. We don't want to go to hell. So one time a devotee was basically sometimes Prabhupada would describe what the spiritual world is like by describing what it's not like. So indirectly this preacher is saying, well, if you go to heaven there's tea and newspapers. If you go to hell there's no tea and newspapers. So one time, it was probably 1969, in America they had a draft, which normally the only people in the military are the people who volunteer for it. But now there's a draft. And the draft means you're not volunteering, but you're being called. So it was a big anxiety for a lot of young people. So, draft started at the age of, I think, between 18 and 24, you were eligible for the draft. And so devotees were especially in anxiety because they're trying to practice Krishna consciousness. If they get drafted, now what's going to happen? How are they going to practice Krishna consciousness? So one devotee was asking Prabhupada a question about the spiritual world. Prabhupada knew that devotee was in anxiety about the draft board. So it's interesting, because I forget his question, but Prabhupada answered his question. He said, in the spiritual world there are no draft boards. And that's how he answered his question. It wasn't exactly what the devotee was asking. In the spiritual world, Prabhupada, what is it like? Prabhupada could have said so many things. He wants to know what it's like living there. And Prabhupada said, in the spiritual world there are no draft boards. So sometimes Prabhupada would have to explain what it is by what it isn't, basically saying there's no anxiety. You don't have to, but to try to explain what it's like, it's all filtered through our own consciousness. Krishna Krsna, he says, maybe I should not start this huge topic, but why we love Krishna if everything was perfect, that is something I'm not able to understand. Yeah. Well, Prabhupada said that, when this topic was being discussed, kind of going back and forth with Prabhupada and back and forth with other devotees, he more or less was saying the same thing, not that you can't understand it, but that's there also. But Prabhupada said, it doesn't matter now because you're here. What matters is how to go back. Some people might say it matters to understand because we have to establish proper siddhanta. But what Prabhupada meant, you might say, if I'm all entangled, I need to understand how I got entangled to become disentangled. So We understand the entanglement is turning our back on Krishna, but exactly how that happened, Prabhupada said it doesn't matter. But you understand that you did it, and so now you just work on going back. And maybe you'll never be completely satisfied, because whatever you say, some devotee is going to say something else and point to some shastric reference that says something else. Why would we turn our back on Krishna? What I like to say is that was the single most foolish thing we've ever done. And so don't ever do it again. And the fact is that we're doing it all the time. So you say, how could we have done that? Well, we're still doing it. Every day we may turn away from Krishna for a little bit just to watch some stupid thing on the internet or watch a movie or whatever, or to engage in some sensual activity, and we forget Krishna for 10 minutes or 10 hours, whatever it is. So we just turned our back on Krishna. So in one sense, the answer is, well, now you've come to Krishna consciousness. You're engaged in serving Krishna, and especially serving Mahaprabhu, which is so special. And still, you can turn your back on Krishna. So you could ask the same question. Say, well, it doesn't make sense that I could have turned my back on Krishna. And, well, does it make sense we're turning our back on Krishna now? Even while we're chanting japa, we might turn our back on Krishna and think of sin. Have you ever thought of sense gratification while you're chanting japa? Have you ever done the dayato vishayo punsam process, contemplating something? I'm sure you have. So now or have you ever seen the deity and thought about something other than the deity? Yeah. So one way we can answer this perennial question of how could we have turned our back on Krishna is say, well, you're doing it now. You have come to Krishna consciousness, you have Mahaprabhu's mercy, you're under the shelter of a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and still you turn your back? How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense. You can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. You just serve Prabhupada throughout this life, he'll take you back to Godhead. And you turn your back? It doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you a story. This is an amazing story because it'll make my point better. So Prabhupada is in Los Angeles. It's 1976, I was there. And they had just made a movie about New Vrindavan. Whoops, the sun is rising. It's time to make adjustments. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So, they had just produced a movie about New Vrindavan, and they were showing the film, and Prabhupada wanted to see the film. It's the debut, and Kirtan Ananda, who was in charge of New Vrindavan, came. And so Prabhupada really liked the film. And then he said, he took his cane, pointed to Kirtan Ananda, and said, I bless Kirtan Ananda. And in this life, he'll go back to God. I bless Kirtan Ananda to go back to, give him my mercy, go back to Godhead. For the service he's done. And then Prabhupada took his cane, he said, why just Kirtananda? I bless all of you and go back to Godhead. Wow, isn't that amazing? And there are many times where Prabhupada said such things, like, thank you for doing this, for this service you'll go back to Godhead. Look at this. Why does this keep trying to focus? Because I'm too far back, I think, maybe. I have to be closer. Okay, we're going to get close, everyone. Anyway, there are other statements Prabhupada made. Thank you for doing this. Continue in this way. I bless you. You'll go back to Godhead. So there's a lot of these I bless you. You'll go back to Godhead statements. Wow. Okay. So let's take that. Okay. You serve Krishna your entire life. You'll be blessed to go back to Godhead. You ever have a thought of not serving Krishna? Of course we have. Does that make any sense? So you're almost with Krishna, and it's been millions of lifetimes, and you're almost there, and oh, let me have some sense gratification. It doesn't make sense. Prabhupada said, in his answer to this question, he said, Jiva always has a choice. It's inherent in the nature of Jiva that he can choose not to be Krishna conscious, unfortunately. But he can choose to be Krishna conscious. Hell means no Wi-Fi, yeah. It would be so nice if all our electronic equipment just blew up. We'd have so much more time. Of course you say, but we couldn't have these classes, yeah. We couldn't. But maybe if there was no electronic equipment, we'd have more gurus. And you'd have a guru in every city of the world, because it's the only way you're going to meet your guru now is he has to be there. So we would adjust. Katie says, because we're not perfect, to a certain extent, we still feel attracted to the material platform, and some devotees struggle to free themselves. Even from the smallest stuff, for some devotees, it became too hard, so they would rather turn away from Krishna and seek refuge in another religion, just so they can keep being on the same material platform and yet have the illusion of making the necessary progress within the frame of rules and regulations. Yeah, like I said, turning away from Krishna is foolish, however you do it, from wherever you do it. And, what you just said is also would be foolish for someone to do that. And it's like, here, just go down the street, you'll get $1 million. No, I'd rather go down that street and get $10. That doesn't make sense. But it's easier to go down that street. Yeah, maybe it's easier, but it's only $10. And you don't really, it's not going to make a difference, $10. But $1 million, that makes a difference. So, yes. Hare Krishna. Should we read some more? Why not? So we're going to go to text 21. Nayam shukapo bhagavan dehinam gopika sutaha jnaninam chatma bhutanam yata bhakti matam iha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Mother Jasoda, is accessible to devotees engaged in spontaneous, loving service. But he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. So this is glorifying devotional service. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Jashoda, is very easily available to devotees, but not to tapasvis, yogis, jnanis, and others who have a bodily concept of life. Although they may sometimes be called Shanta Bhaktas, real bhakti begins with Dasya Ras. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4:11. Yeyatamam prapajyante tam stadaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushya parta sarvashaha. As living entities surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Prita. Everyone is seeking Krishna, for he is the supersoul of all individual souls. Everyone loves his body and wants to protect it because he is within the body as the soul. And everyone loves the soul because the soul is part and parcel of the supersoul. Therefore, everyone is actually seeking to achieve happiness by reviving his relationship with the supersoul. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedasya sarva aham eva vidya. Vidya. Everyone loves the soul because the soul is part of the supersoul. Everyone is actually seeking to achieve happiness by reviving their relationship by reviving his relationship with the Supersoul, although they don't know that. By all the Vedas, it is I who am to be known. Therefore, the karmis, jnanis, and yogis, and saintly persons are all seeking Krishna, but by following in the footsteps of devotees who are in a direct relationship with Krishna, especially the inhabitants of Vrindavan, one can reach the supreme position of associating with Krishna. As it is said, Vrindavanam parityaja padam ekam nagacchati. Krishna does not leave Vrindavan even for a moment. The Vrindavan Vasis, Mother Jasoda, Krishna's friends and Krishna's conjugal lovers, the younger gopis with whom he dances, have very intimate relationships with Krishna. And if one follows in the footsteps of these devotees, Krishna is available. Although the Nitya-Siddha expansions of Krishna always remain with Krishna, if those engaged in sadhana siddhi follow in the footsteps of Krishna's Nitya-Siddha associates, such sadhana siddhas also can easily attain Krishna without difficulty. So, whether we're conditioned or eternally liberated, we can become eternally unconditioned from this conditioned position. So, wow. Can you imagine you come to this material world and Krishna says, that's it, it's over, no relationship with me and you can never come back to me. Wow. But he doesn't say that. But just imagine if he did. And now imagine, you don't have to imagine, it's true, that he's not saying that. And so now think how fortunate we are that he's allowing us to connect no matter what we've done in the past. And so why would we be so stupid to turn our back on Krishna? And the answer is because we're stupid. Of course, the answer that Katie gave is correct. We're conditioned. And we're so conditioned to running away from Krishna that we don't even have to think about it. We just do it. But my contention is, at least we should think that we're stupid to do it. That it was the stupidest thing we've ever done in our existence was to turn our back on Krishna. And now when we do it, it's stupid. We just have to think, this is stupid. There couldn't be anything more stupid than turning my back on Krishna. Then or now. And if I continue to turn my back on Krishna, I just have to tell myself, you are so stupid. What are you doing? Your brain is not working. Something is wrong with you. Why would you turn your back on Krishna? What are you going to get? You're going to go down the road and get $10, and you're turning your back on the road where there's 1 million, or why don't we say 100 billion? That should set you up good for life, right? 100 billion. There's 100 billion on this road, there's 10 on this road, and you go down this road and you turn your back and think, I'll go that road. That's really stupid. That's how we should see it. You agree? So Krishna Karshani says, I think I am turning my back from Krishna right now because I don't have real love. And what I have is gratitude. That's why I'm not able to think about him, because I am not mad in love. Brajbasis are mad in love. Okay, but my contention is still, now what you say is true, but you can counteract that with intelligence. So by conditioning, maybe I want to turn my back on Krishna. What's the proper mudra? Is it this or this? I think that's the Donald Trump mudra. I think this is the proper mudra. The Gyan mudra. Not this, but this. This finger's inauspicious. This. So, okay, by conditioning, yes. But by intelligence, no. So, I have said this many times, if you want to be Krishna conscious, you have to be a little smart, because Maya is going to outsmart you if you're not smart. And so, Prabhupada is helping us become smart. If you don't read his books, you're not going to be smart enough to properly deal with Maya. And then you'll turn your back on Krishna. But if you always remember, there's the $100 million road, which I'm not qualified to travel on, but Prabhupada is allowing me to travel on that road. And if I go off that road, that simply is stupid. It's the height of stupidity. That's how we should think. Okay, a non-devotee is working hard for sense gratification because that's all they know. So that's just normal. Of course that's what they're doing. They don't know anything else. They don't know there's the $100 million road. They only know there's the $10 road. And they need that $10 to get something to eat, so they're going down that road. So in a sense, we can say that they're stupid, but in a sense, we can say if we do that, we're more stupid because they don't know there's another road. And we know there's another road. So if we know there's another road and we go on the same road as the non-devotee, then we are more stupid than they are. Okay, you might say they're stupid. I would say not necessarily are they stupid. They may act in stupid ways, but they don't have any information how to act in any other way. So yes, maybe what they're doing is stupid, but you can't really accuse them per se of being so stupid because they haven't been offered an alternative. We've been offered an alternative, so we don't take the alternative. Compared to them, we're really stupid. You agree? We're major stupid. Here you've been given the road. So yes, I don't want to go on that road because it's a long road and it's a difficult road. And that road for the $10 road, that is an easy road to go on. So I'm conditioned to go on that road. Okay, yeah, but with intelligence you understand this is the right road. So therefore, Prabhupada gave us so many books so we could use our intelligence could be strengthened in a way that even though we had inclinations to do the wrong thing, we wouldn't do it because our intelligence wouldn't allow us. But if the intelligence is weak, then the conditioning will override us, and then we'll do something impelled by the influence of the modes of nature. So, Katie says, you're 100% correct, but then again, not everyone is able to turn their mirrors to themselves and face the state they are in. Well, for us, but maybe not everyone, but for us as devotees, we're very clear about the consequences. So, I would say this, in response to that statement, the consequences of our actions are so profound, either to be Krishna conscious or not be Krishna conscious based on the choices we make, but we have now the choice to be Krishna conscious. So, you say not everyone is able to turn the mirror within, but the point is, we have this opportunity to be Krishna conscious. So, that opportunity should impel us to maybe be able to do things that naturally we couldn't do. And so maybe in this case, we could say many of us are not able to turn the mirror within. But the fact is the stakes are too high to not turn it within. So that's how we should think. Okay, so many things are difficult. So many things, suppressing the false ego is so difficult. Cooperating is difficult. Apologizing, being humble, forgiving, doing service that's austere. So many things are difficult. But our idea is the stakes are so high that how could we not do it? We have to do it because the stakes are really high if we don't, and the stakes are really high if we do. We get Krishna if we do, and if we don't, we lose Krishna, and it's simply just go through another life as we've already gone through this. So you want to go through another life? You like this life? Is it good? You want to grow up again? You want to go in the womb and go to school and have to deal with all the boys and girls and the bullying and the this and that? You want to do that again? And then hopefully you find a guru and become a devotee again. And who knows what state the movement will be in? You want to go through all that? That's not smart. So that's how we're supposed to think. There are two kinds of, Krishna Karshan, he says, there are two kinds of souls, Nityasiddha and Nityabaddha. One are perfect, the other seems to be created with defect, meaning having tendency to fall down. No, it's a different energy. It's Jiva Shakti. The other one is not Jiva Shakti. They're part of Krishna's internal potency. Jiva Shakti is marginal potency. So don't compare yourself to them. They're part of Krishna's internal potency. So it's a different energy. And unfortunately, you're not part of that energy, so just, get over it. You're Jiva. Just get over it. You're not Shakti Tattva. You are Jiva Tattva. Get over it. You have free will. And, the good news? The good news is you have free will. The bad news is you misused it. The good news is that you can use it to go back to Krishna. So, Priya is saying, I never understood how there are so many people who have turned their back against Krishna. I have asked this question before. And I've been told that there are so many who are actually serving Krishna in the spiritual world in comparison to those who are not. So my view is limited because I'm looking at what I can see. Yeah. The material world, as vast as it is calculated to be just a small portion of the spiritual world. Anyway, I think the conclusion of this particular discussion is that we're very fortunate to have Prabhupada's mercy. And just, be happy you have it. And take advantage of it. Yes? Do your best, everyone, and take advantage of it. That's the conclusion of this discussion. Stop turning your back. Katie says, if I went through all this once more, then I would be able to serve Prabhupada and Krishna more. Not necessarily. You may become attracted to Maya. You don't know. Only if you became a pure devotee and you came back, that would be because Krishna or Prabhupada wanted you. But if you're not yet a pure devotee and you come back, there's no guarantee you'll engage in devotional service. But you can't, in other words, here's the conclusion. Right now, you have opportunity to become a pure devotee of Krishna. So you don't know what you'll have in the next life. Don't think, it's guaranteed, I'm a devotee, this and that. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you'll come back and, your parents will mistreat you and you'll want nothing to do with devotees. You don't know. You don't know what happened. But now you have Prabhupada, you have Sangha, you have a guru, or there are gurus you could have. You have Prabhupada's books. You can have seva. You like everything you need, you have. So just do it. Do it. Get it over with. Just get out of here. Become Krishna conscious. Don't mess around. Krishna Karshani says, the problem is that many or even most of people are becoming devotees not to love God, but just seeking for relief and distress. And when they get relief, they don't want to continue the process. So it's all about motivation. So that's why we have to become pure. Because people won't think that way when they're in the association of pure devotees. Because in the association of pure devotees, they'll think, I want to be like this pure devotee. He's amazing, or she's amazing. And look, I want to fulfill some material desire through Krishna, but they're experiencing 1,000,000 times greater happiness than I'm experiencing. And, pure devotee is attractive. And so, if you become pure devotee, people want to become like you. So that's the idea. Yes? There's nothing there's no problem, I don't want to say there's no problem, but so many problems in people becoming Krishna conscious can be solved or helped or overcome or transcended if we become pure devotees, because in our association, so many of those material desires and so much of that lethargy or whatever it is that's holding them back from Krishna consciousness, it will be dissipated by your association. It'll just go. It'll fly away. That we saw with Prabhupada. In his association, so much of the contamination, it just, I don't know where it went. It went somewhere, but we weren't affected by it. And we wanted to be like Prabhupada. It was such an inspiration. And also, because Prabhupada was a pure devotee, this? No, I think this. Is that the mudra? Because Prabhupada was a pure devotee, he could pray for us. And Krishna would listen to that prayer, because as we're reading, Krishna's under the control of his pure devotees. So Krishna would listen to Prabhupada's prayer, he could pray for us, and by his prayers we would become Krishna conscious. So if you become a lover of Krishna and Krishna will do anything for you, then you will pray the Jnana Mudra. And then you will pray the Jnana Mudra. Then you will pray, and Krishna, for devotees, for the people you're preaching to, or if you're a guru, for your disciples, you'll pray to Krishna for them, and Krishna will hear, and then Krishna will take care of them. And that's what we see when Prabhupada was saying, I bless you, you all go back to Godhead. Well, like, what's that all about? We're not qualified. No. If that's Prabhupada's desire, Krishna will fulfill it somehow or other. And you say, but can you make it back to Godhead if you're not a pure devotee? No, you can't. So that means if Krishna's going to fulfill the desire, then by Prabhupada's mercy we'll become pure devotees. There's a story a devotee tells. He goes into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada is crying, and the devotee doesn't know what to do, and he's just standing there, and then the devotee starts crying. And then Prabhupada stops. The devotee says, why are you crying? And Prabhupada says, by mercy of my Guru, I've been allowed not like that. Yeah. Is that it? Is that the Jnana Mudra? Not like that, like that. Okay. So, Prabhupada said, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I've been able to see Krishna. And Prabhupada said, well, why were you crying? He said, because you were crying, Prabhupada. So, this happened. Two devotees, different devotees have told this story, that sometimes Prabhupada would be showing these emotions, and why? And said, by the mercy of my Guru, I've been able to see Krishna. So think of that story. If your Guru gives you mercy, if Prabhupada gives you mercy, if Mahaprabhu gives you mercy, then you could see Krishna. You could become Krishna conscious. So if you become pure, then Krishna will listen to you, and then you can pray for people, and so many problems will be gone. So those people will be able to overcome so many problems. There's another story, beautiful story, super important. This one devotee had fallen into Maya, and then he had been associating with some yogi, and he was learning from the yogi how to get mystic powers, and he was even collecting money in the name of ISKCON for himself. So he's doing so many bad things, and then finally, when it got really bad, one of the leaders went to Prabhupada and said, we can't take this anymore, we have to stop this. And Prabhupada said, no, he said, you don't understand the depth of the forgiveness of Lord Nityananda. So no matter what the devotee does, we try to get him back. So this is Prabhupada. No matter what a devotee does, He's still praying. He's still asking Krishna, please help this devotee. So when we have more devotees like that on the planet that have this unlimited forgiveness, who can help, who could never give up on a devotee and pray to Krishna for helping that devotee, then that person, they may become successful by those prayers. So Krishna Krsna is saying, but become a pure devotee is a process, and we are in the process, and we are struggling. So how to be discouraged? You mean encouraged. How to be discouraged? That's easy. Just be yourself. You'll be discouraged. How to be encouraged? Because sometimes, no, I didn't mean that as a criticism. I'm just saying, be your condition. By our conditioned nature, we're naturally encouraged in Maya and discouraged in spiritual life. So just be yourself. You'll be spiritually discouraged. That's what I meant. Not to you, Krishna Krsna, to all of us. How to be encouraged. Discouraged, I don't have to teach you that. Because sometimes when we are honest with ourselves, we can see how long the road we have is ahead. And it's a bit discouraged. Okay, so let me give you an example. You'll find this materially. Accepte mis más humildes reverencias. Humildes reference. See, I can speak Spanish. Yeah. Por favor, accepta mis. Isn't it acceptame? Mis, is it mis or me? Acceptame más humildes reverencias. Todas las glorias, Srila Prabhupada. Todas las glorias a los devotos reunidos. See, I can speak Spanish. Aren't you proud of me? So, so the road ahead is long. Have you, Krishna Krsna, have you ever, really wanted something materially? Maybe before you were a devotee, even as a devotee, you want something materially. Like, maybe when you first met your husband as a brahmachari and you thought, oh, I'd really like to marry him. Let's use that as an example, because that definitely has happened to some of you out there, or if it hasn't, it will happen. So you see this beautiful man or this beautiful woman, you think, oh, I would love to marry that man. Or you think of something even more illicit, I would love to. Something you really want badly. And you don't think, this is going to be a long road, it's going to be difficult, I'm not qualified. If you really want it, you just think how to get it. Isn't it? That's all you think about, is how to get it. You don't think about how difficult it is. You just think, what do I have to do to get it? And whatever it is, I'm going to do it. Isn't it? So, I would say this. When we saw Prabhupada, we were so inspired to be Krishna conscious. We never ever thought, this is too difficult. We never ever thought, I'm so far away. We never thought that way for a second. We just thought, I want to be like Prabhupada. I want to serve Krishna. Devoto puro is what I've learned from your Spanish. Yes. Become a devoto puro. And you can understand that. Puro. Devoto puro, por favor. So, we're with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada has put this seed in our heart that I just want to be Krishna conscious. That's it. And there was no thought of, I can't do it, I'm too fallen, it's going to take too long, it's going to be too hard. Our thought was just tell me what I have to do, I'm ready. Whatever it is, let's do it. But Prabhu, it's going to take a long time. I don't care. But Prabhu, you have to get up at 4 o'clock. I don't care. Just tell me what I have to do. This is what I want. So, Krishna Krsna, what you said is true when you don't have that desire. Then, it's so hard, so long, then. But when you want to be Krishna conscious, when you value Krishna consciousness, and you say, this life I want to be Krishna conscious, then you don't think like, you think it's a long road, it's going to be so hard that it's like, you can say it's a psychological state that when you want to achieve something, you don't think about how you can't achieve it. But when you really don't want to achieve something, psychologically, you shift and you start focusing on how difficult it is. It's almost like you want to convince yourself to quit because it's so difficult. Or in the back of your mind, you'd like to quit. So then you might say, well, how do you get that? You saw Prabhupada, and now you're saying, because you saw Prabhupada, then you had that desire. Read his books. You'll see Prabhupada also. And then you'll have that desire also. And then learn about Prabhupada, hear about him, read about him. You'll have that desire also. You want to be like him. If you hear about Prabhupada enough, you'll want to be like him. You want to be a pure devotee like him. And if your desire to become a pure devotee becomes strong enough, then you won't think, oh, I'm so fallen. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, it's so long. Those thoughts won't even enter your mind. The only thought that will enter your mind is, I want to be like Prabhupada. How do I just, whatever it is, whatever I have to do to be like Prabhupada, I'll do it. Sign me up. I don't care. Cold shower, sleep on the floor, 4 a.m. in the morning. We'll get up. We'll go on Harinam all day. Whatever it is, sign me up. I'll do it. If this produces Krishna consciousness, I'm in. I'll do it. If you lose that desire, yeah, then of course, oh, it's so hard. It's so difficult. The road is so long. I'm so fallen. All of that will dominate your consciousness. But I would say, why don't you look at it like this way? You know what they say in sales? They either you're going to sell the product, or the person's going to sell you on why they don't want the product. So either you're going to sell yourself on why to be Krishna conscious, or Maya will sell yourself on why you don't want to be Krishna conscious. Or Maya will sell you, and then you'll think it's your idea. She'll give you all the ideas, and then she'll make you think, well, it's actually your idea. I have so many good reasons why I shouldn't be Krishna conscious, but there is no good reason. There are only bad reasons, right? But I think I'll have good reasons. Well, look at it. It's so hard. It's so long. It's so austere. It's so this or that. Yeah. Materially speaking, maybe they're good reasons, but spiritually speaking, they're all bad reasons. And so when you hear from Prabhupada or you hear about his life, you don't think that way. You just think, I want to be like him. This is amazing. This person, he's so pure. He's so inspiring. He's helping so many people. I want to be like that. And you read his books, and your intelligence becomes so clear. No, this is so valuable. What I'm getting here, Krishna consciousness, is so deep, it's so profound, it's so wonderful, it's so edifying, it's so satisfying, it's so blissful. That's what you get by studying Prabhupada's books. And so when you feel that way, then there's that desire to achieve more and more Krishna consciousness. But Maya will always come and say, hey, big boy, check me out. I've got something really special. This Krishna consciousness stuff, it may be okay, but it's really hard. And, when you actually look at yourself, you're kind of a mess, pretty much, and you're not really that spiritual. And, why pretend and why fake it? And, just be real and take it easy. And you could do it in another life, or you have so many lives. I mean, what's the big deal? That's what Maya will say. But Prabhupada's saying the opposite. He said, no, you have this, you're on the threshold of being pure. Do it in this life. Why wait? Why wait and then have to suffer again, take birth again, and so forth? You can do it now. That's what Prabhupada is saying. And Maya is saying, yeah, but, you have to be real, and you can always do it in the next life, and it's really hard, and, you really... so many things you don't really like, and you don't really like to read, and it's hard to chant, and your rounds aren't good anyway. So you got this whole list, and you go, yeah, that's true. I should, maybe I should take it easy. I'm just being artificial. So that's what Maya's doing. Just this big, whoop, this big cloud. Oh, okay, maybe Maybe I should try to become rich and famous. Yeah, I gave that up, that desire. Maybe I should reactivate it. And so sometimes Maya will get us to reactivate all these dormant desires that we had put on hold when we took up our spiritual life. So when you hear about Prabhupada and you hear from him, it's less likely that's going to happen. It's more likely that you'll have stronger desires. So we have some comments. Prabhupada is both the best disciple and the best spiritual master anyone could have. Yeah, he sets the example of the best disciple. You know what Prabhupada said? Something so useful for us when they were describing or talking about the success of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, he said, I was just an ordinary householder, married man with a family. I wasn't nothing special. But my spiritual master asked me to do this. So I thought, well, he wants me to do this. So let me try. And it has come out successful. So Prabhupada was saying that for us. He's saying, like me, you can also do this. I was just an ordinary person. I just made some effort. You also can make some effort. Try to satisfy your guru. Try to please the predecessor acharyas. And make some effort and you can come out successful. So Prabhupada really played the role of an ordinary person who had gotten Krishna's mercy, and he played that role for us and saying, no, you can do the same thing. And it when we say played the role, but Prabhupada was completely serious. He said, no, I was just a grihasta. I didn't want to take sannyas. My godbrother was saying I should take sannyas. And my spiritual master came to me in dreams telling me to take sannyas. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was so difficult to do it. I didn't think I could do it. It was very austere, but he forced me, and so I tried, and it became successful. So you also try. You don't have to be qualified. So that's how Prabhupada presented himself. So, but he meant it 100%. So I may not be qualified, you may not be qualified, but try to share Krishna consciousness. Try to be Krishna conscious, and then Krishna will do everything. That's how we look at it. Don't take it as a challenge, but most of Prabhupada's disciples left, so it means they did not make it. Prabhupada said they didn't leave. He said, if they're not eating meat, they're still my disciples. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. Leaving, I think the vast majority of them, of Prabhupada disciples, might have left ISKCON, but they didn't leave Krishna consciousness in there. So you have to see there's two different things. Krishna consciousness is your own conviction that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada is your spiritual master in this case. Devotional service is the perfection of my life. And I don't think I think very few, minuscule number of Prabhupada disciples, you could count them on your hand, ever gave that up internally, that Prabhupada is a pure devotee, that Krishna is God, that I am his servant, and so forth. Even in spite of their leaving ISKCON or perhaps even engaging in ordinary material affairs, I don't think they ever forgot that. I don't think they could forget that. I don't think they ever forgot their relationship with Prabhupada. And I think many, because I meet them, are not connected with ISKCON, but they're reading Prabhupada's books every day. Many of them, or some of them, are distributing Prabhupada's books or preaching. So that connection is there. And so Prabhupada, he gave a broad definition of ISKCON. He said, wherever there are devotees hearing and chanting together, that's ISKCON. So in that sense, just think what Prabhupada gave and what the impression he made on these people. And so anyone who saw Prabhupada is just, you can't forget that. And yes, we may become overcome by our conditioning and whatever, but you can't forget Prabhupada, and you can't forget the message he gave. It's too true. You can't forget something that's true. You can try to forget it. You can run away from it, but you can't forget it. And what Prabhupada gave, it's too profound. It's the only thing that makes sense of anything in this world. Otherwise, it just does, things don't make sense. If you think karma is not working, it doesn't make sense. That makes God out a powerless person. If you think God is just some white light energy, it doesn't make sense. He's a somebody, not a something. And so those who've studied Prabhupada and read his books, no matter where they are in their life, those who've met Prabhupada, it's really hard to forget. And it's really hard to deny the truth. And it's really, really difficult to look at Prabhupada's life and say that this person is probably the most rare person that ever stepped on the planet within our lifetime, or within the last 100 years. So, and you don't know how they're going to end up, and because of all the service they did for Prabhupada, you don't know. Now, it was very special to be in Prabhupada's presence, and the level of Krishna consciousness we had in his presence was very special. And therefore, some devotees, it was very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness because they were getting so much strength from Prabhupada. It's like, let's say I'm lifting 200 pounds. I don't even weigh 200 pounds. How could I lift 200 pounds? Because I don't realize it, but you're behind me and you're helping me lift, and I'm doing it. And I'm thinking, wow, I can lift 200 pounds. But then you go away, and then I try to lift the 200 pounds, and I can't do it. And I'm thinking, well, this is really hard. You've left the city, and somehow or other, I can't do this. So it was like that for many devotees. Like they were lifting hundreds of pounds of Krishna conscious service and hundreds of pounds of sadhana, devotional practice. And when Prabhupada left, they couldn't do it on their own. It's just his mercy. They needed his mercy. And so we can say that Prabhupada gave that mercy to these devotees because they couldn't have existed on their own, and they did amazing service, and Prabhupada needed their service. And so he just gave them mercy, and they were able to do this. And he was hoping that after he left, they would continue. But at least he could give that mercy while he was present. So he gave it, and they did phenomenal service. And some people, very shortly after Prabhupada left, they left. They just had no power, they had no strength. They couldn't continue. And some took that mercy deep within their heart, and they just continued powerfully. So that was, that's just a reality. I think and try to understand it. Like Prabhupada comes to the West, right? And nobody knows anything about the Vedas. Very few people know, and even less know about bhakti, and everything Prabhupada's teaching is pretty much new to everybody. Some people might have read some books, but a lot of these books, Eastern philosophical books, they were really difficult to understand. They were impersonal, and even if you understood it, something, but there was nobody to see practicing it, so you didn't really understand it practically, how to apply it. So Prabhupada comes, and I would say for most of his disciples, they did not have a lot of connection with yoga and meditation and that whole Indian philosophy, and those who didn't really understand it well, or misunderstood. It was well misunderstood. So now Prabhupada comes, and he's got to start a movement, and he needs people to help him. So in my estimation, or my evaluation of what Prabhupada did, he was just like giving this Shakti to us so that we could act beyond our capabilities, both materially and spiritually. Just by his presence, by his prayers, but whatever Shakti he had, we were just like amazingly Krishna conscious, although by nature not amazingly Krishna conscious, but by his mercy, his prayer, Krishna reciprocating with Prabhupada, and therefore we're acting in ways which are far beyond our capabilities. And as a result, the movement is spreading in ways which are like completely unbelievable. And so Krishna is working through us by Prabhupada's desire, and these phenomenal things are happening that us as 20-year-old men and women on our own couldn't do. I mean, like how do 20-year-old people start a movement that becomes a household word in a few years, and it goes all over the world a few years later? I mean, that's that's crazy by our own qualification. I mean, if you put all of us together, all because when that was happening, there was only a few hundred of us. Okay, put those few hundred of us together and say, go start a movement around the world. They're like, duh, how do we do that? What are we going to teach? Where's the inspiration going to come from? So Prabhupada comes, he teaches us, he inspires us, he gives us this Shakti, and there's all these amazing things happen. And so he had to do that. In my estimation, he had to do that to get the movement going. And therefore, after he left, it hadn't gone deep in the heart of everybody. And so some couldn't make it because they were so dependent on being uplifted by Prabhupada. And a lot of us were kind of in the middle. Some just inherited that within their heart, and after Prabhupada left, they just went on very strongly. Even some devotees went on more strongly than when Prabhupada was here. They just imbibed everything Prabhupada gave. They took it to heart and they ran with it. And some were kind of in limbo. They were having to, what we call in English, regroup. In other words, take everything Prabhupada said, feeling now bereft and weak, and kind of processing that and saying, okay, I was understanding these things and I was serving Prabhupada, but it was all his pushing and his energy. And now I have to get that energy from his words and from his service without his physical presence on the planet. And so it was like a new process. How do I do that? And so for many of us, it took years to kind of get back to that state of inspiration that we had in Prabhupada's presence, because we had to learn and imbibe Prabhupada's presence in a new way. And now it wasn't physical, it was through books and service. And so it's kind of like a new thing. Is Prabhupada really here in his books? Is he really here in his service? How is he here? How do I experience that? How can I feel that? Will he still talk to me? And so forth. So that was the challenge. And all of you, or many of you, will have the same challenge when your guru leaves. Some of you will fall off. Some of you will go more strongly. And some of you will take years to process that relationship through service in separation, because there's no physical proximity. You can't get a letter, you can't talk to them, you can't get inspired. And if you become too dependent on your guru in a particular way, then when he leaves, you'll fall apart. And I think a lot of devotees were like that. They were just so dependent on Prabhupada that when he left, they couldn't function. So there has to be a healthy balance of dependence and independence, and so that when your guru is no longer here, you remain strong. Yes, Krishna Karshani says, I agree with you 108% that to achieve goal, we should focus on goal, not obstacles. What I meant was that, okay, that's one statement, but what I meant is when you actually want something intensely, that's what you do. You don't focus on it. You don't even see the obstacles. Obstacles don't register. It's just, I want to marry this man, but you can't. He's not, doesn't want to get me this. No, I want. It's going to happen. It's like, that's all you can think of. And everyone's saying, no, but you can't. And all you're thinking is, no, I'm going to marry him. Isn't it? Like, you can't see an obstacle. It's psychologically impossible to see the obstacle. Isn't it? What you said is what I'm afraid of, that it won't be easy for the next generation after you Prabhupada disciples leave the world. I am not sure myself how I will function in my spiritual life. In theory, I know that instructions are more important. Still, it won't be easy. You can practice now, because you're going to have to understand that when you go. You're going to have that. It took me a long time. I would say it might have taken me 10 or 15 years to really get to that point where I felt almost as if it was like Prabhupada was still here. But now it's 40 years, and still, sometimes I just think, I just wish Prabhupada were here. It's just like so many difficulties that we face. I wish Prabhupada would be here. When I see challenges in our own group where sometimes we disagree on something or don't get along, and I know, well, Prabhupada was here, he would solve that in one sentence or two sentences. But the passing of the Guru forces us to realize all the wonderful things that he gave us. And you will realize, when your guru is gone, you will realize that you didn't realize what he gave you until he left. And then you'll go back and you'll realize he gave us everything. He talked about everything. He guided us in every single way. I didn't realize this. And now I have to hold on to these instructions because I don't have his personal presence, so I have to hold on to his instructions, and I see everything I need to go back to Godhead, he gave me. So then I feel like close. I feel like, well, he's with me, he's still guiding me. Although he's not physically here, he's still guiding me because his instructions are so pertinent and relevant. So the Krishna Krsna says, it won't be easy. I don't think it was easy for anybody when Prabhupada left. I think it was extremely difficult for all of us. But part of what was going on is that because Prabhupada said, I'm present in my instruction, and that the instruction is the real association, we were like forced to accept that, even though it was so difficult to accept it, because it wasn't what we were experiencing. But because Prabhupada said that, we thought, well, this is what Prabhupada said, this is what he wants. We have to somehow or other try to understand how this is true. And so we would meditate on it, and we would serve. And as we would serve, we would feel this connection that I'm doing his service. This is his mission. This is what he wants. And I would feel in that some closeness. When I was temple president, after Prabhupada left, I had become temple president. And it's like, this is Prabhupada's temple. I felt so close to Prabhupada. I'm running your temple. It's like taking over your father's business. So you would naturally feel close to someone when you're executing their mission. When you know this is something they would want, this is something they asked you to do when they were physically present, and you carry it out, you feel that connection, you feel that closeness. And you feel it even more than you do when they're present. So it's a different kind of association. But what I'm suggesting is that you try to understand that now, so that when it actually happens, you're already used to connecting with your spiritual master through seva, and you're used to being helped deeply by their instructions, so that when they're not physically present, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So Katie says, one day it will be us who will be gurus, and we have to do our best to continue and never give up. Yeah, that's the ultimate thing is, if you, like a lot of devotees say, well, I could never be a guru. And it will come that women will also be allowed to be gurus. It's just been caught up in some bureaucracy for some reason, which doesn't entirely make sense to everyone why it went through any kind of bureaucracy. But women will also be allowed to be gurus. And if you become a guru, then you feel very close to Prabhupada, because this is what he wants all of us to do. He wants all of us to help other people. So, you have so many disciples, and each one has a special role they play within ISKCON as a whole and within their yatra. How do you know which spiritual path and seva are best for each of them? There's two ways. Either Krishna will guide me, or Krishna will guide them through somebody who's close to them where they live, or through Krishna within the heart will guide them. So sometimes Krishna will guide you, and that's the super soul, that's the guru within you. Prabhupada said once, he said, I will always guide you. Or he said, no, he said, I can guide you through anybody. So you will, we have to learn to see our guru appearing through other people when someone tells us something. And say, that's my guru. One time I was actually going to take sannyas when I was the ripe old age of 29. I don't know if you know this, that I was put on the list to take sannyas at 29. And I was married. So one day I called my wife and said, I just want to tell you I'm taking sannyas. And it was nice knowing you, basically. It was basically like that. Very heavy, just cut it off. We're taking sannyas. This is a war. I'm going to become a general and fight this war. And I'm not going to allow any attachment to wife and family to stop it. Right? So I had gone to Salt Lake City, and near Salt Lake City, there's a place, I think we would do Sankirtan sometimes, Sankirtan, called Sandy, Utah. And my former wife's name was Sandy. So I started thinking about her. It's like, why did you have to name this city Sandy? Because now it reminds me of this woman that I was married to that I'm leaving now to take sannyas. And so it was becoming a little bit of it was just like a botheration that this city is reminding me and of my attachment and how taking sannyas is, it's going to be a challenge. And so I was dealing with it, that challenge. Like, here I am, I'm going to put myself on the line now, this is pretty serious. And I was on the street, it's a Mormon city, and I met one Mormon. He must have been a Mormon. He didn't say he was, but he must have been. And we're talking, I don't know what we were talking about, well, it was something pretty deep, and he said, I didn't tell him I was going to take sannyas or anything, and he said, you are going to be challenged. You are going to face challenges. Be strong. It's like, oh my God. This is like Prabhupada speaking to me. So Prabhupada said, I can speak to you through anyone. So anyone who's speaking to you, and you hear the instruction of your guru coming from that person, that means your guru is speaking to you through that person, whoever it may be. Just some young boy. This boy was probably 20 or 19 years old, and he's speaking to me. He's speaking to me. That was my wife calling. She's flying in from New York now. Anyway, maybe we'll end here. I'll just end this, then I'll call her back. So, if she calls again, I'm going to have to take the call, which means you might hear the conversation. Well, that's not good. If she calls again, I think I'll have to take the call. And we're going to have a class today at 4 p.m., so we can continue this discussion if you want. But we're going to talk about cows. So, I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? I got sidetracked. Anyway, so yeah, I was saying, so anywhere you can hear the instruction of your spiritual master. If somebody tells you something that your spiritual master said, I see my spiritual master. So a disciple will see their spiritual master in so many places. They'll see their spiritual master instructing them. So, yes, when you see an instruction coming to you, you can think, my spiritual master is instructing me through this devotee. And Krishna Krsna says, I understand your point. My friend, Prabhupada's disciples, advised me to take advantage of personal association with my guru because I will regret that I did not take chance when I could. I'm aware that overdependence is not good. Yeah, overdependence isn't good because it's a weakness. There's healthy dependence. I depend on the mercy, I depend on the instruction, I depend on the service. But weak dependence is like, I depend on you to hold me up. But I would rather say, I would depend on my spiritual master to give me strength to do his service, not to hold me up. I might feel that without his mercy, I can't do anything, which is true, and I would collapse. But I can hold myself up by his instructions. That's what he wants. So I hold myself up by his instructions. Through his personal association, I get special advantage. No, I don't have to talk to her. She just sent me a message. So I get to drive to Orlando. So everything's good with my wife. I drive to Orlando in a couple hours. An hour and a half I go to Orlando and pick her up and come back. Yeah. So why don't we end class now? Thank you for listening. And as I said, 4 o'clock we'll have class. We were scheduled to talk about cows, but you know how sometimes things morph into different topics. And then tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock, I'm giving a class in the Alachua Temple on the Holy Name. We're having a Holy Name Festival. And I told Guru Nishta that I would bring my phone and broadcast. But there's two problems that could happen. One problem is that I don't get good internet connection. Around where the temple is, the signals are weak. The second problem is I could actually forget to bring my phone. That has happened. And in any event, it will be recorded on Alachua live audio. They don't have a live video stream, but they have a live audio, so you can hear the class there. There's devotees, lots of devotees here for the Holy Name Festival. So we're going to talk about the Holy Name. And so we'll see you 4 o'clock, because the time I get back, I don't think I can make the 3 o'clock class. So I schedule it at 4. So, Hare Krishna to all of you, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai.